to another episode of Tell Me More, a hospitality data podcast. I am Stephanie Ricca with CoStar News, as always, here with STR's Isaac Collazo and CoStar's Jan Freitag. Hi, guys.
Hey, Steph.
Hello in person.
We are recording in person, dear listeners. That means that we are all sitting here around a table face to face, making eye contact, not knowing where it will lead. I can't promise anything.
Yeah, this is very different. Normally we just hear each other, and now, wow, here we are.
But hey,
You're not a hologram. I thought you were a hologram.
authentic in-person experiences
Exactly. Yes.
are the name of the hospitality game, right?
And we're providing it to our listeners.
Yes.
So much has happened since the last time we talked for this podcast, which feels like forever ago, right? You know, we had the Winter Olympics, which I know are very popular among me and my team. I don't know, you guys Olympics fans?
Which sports?
Well, we watch curling. I watch figure skating, hockey.
How about the four-man bobsled team?
There is a
Germany
four-man bobsled.
killed it. We have 12 people who are really good at it. And if you do the math, that means the top 3 bobsleds were all German. How crazy is that? Gold, silver, bronze in the four-man bobsled team.
That's really cool.
And no, we're not going to buy the jersey as you do for the winning team, because it turns out those are...
A bobsled suit might not necessarily be something you want to run around in to the grocery store.
Not really. Yeah. But anyway, so we will put them aside for 4 years, and then we'll cheer again.
So we can't follow like a international bobsled circuit?
Maybe. Like we just pay attention during the Olympics.
You know, there's a lot of good data around sporting events, as you both know. So if you're ever finding yourself, you know, wanting to dig into something new, look for the International Bobsled Circuit. And listeners, if any of you know if this exists, please do let us know.
I'm sure it exists. I'm sure it exists.
Yes.
Now we'll know. If somebody calls us or drops us a LinkedIn message, then hey, we'll invite you to be a guest on the podcast. Now, closer to the industry, I'd say the headline of the past month has been hello, luxury hotel sales, right? Finally. So Host sold 2 Four Seasons resorts, one in Orlando, one in Jackson Hole, combined $1 billion. GenCom picked up the Ritz-Carlton New York. And then, of course, in the most, yes, we knew this was going to happen, news, the Waldorf Astoria in New York is unofficially for sale. It's for sale.
It's for sale, right? So Craig Carmen from the Journal broke the story, and the big question is who is willing to spend all this money on the iconic address, you know, on Park Avenue. And the question is, will the Chinese investor, which is, you know, now mostly government owned, ever make any return on their investment? And the answer is likely no. Part of the problem is they don't know how the math works, because we don't know how much money they spent on it. Was it $4 billion? Was it $5 billion? Was it $6 billion? Nobody
That makes
knows.
it hard on the exit, right?
Exactly.
And so much changed with that hotel too, right? Room count went way down.
Way down.
So
yeah.
price per room, whatever it was then, is going to look different.
It is beautiful, though. I mean, they did
you saw it. That's right.
renovation. Yeah, I had a chance to walk through it, and what was just spectacular to see was that we all remember the old NYU Investment Conference used to be there, and it all seemed a little bit dark. And so when we got the tour, they said, "Yeah, well, there's like 100 years of cigarette smoke on the ceiling, and we're finally liberated that away, and it just looks stunning, sparkling." So if you have a chance, dear listener, just to walk through the lobby, it is truly spectacular.
And yes, I think it will definitely sell. I don't think it's a question of if, it's just when.
And who.
It just depends. I mean, you got to think, and people buy crazy things all the time. Like, you know, someone did buy Sears and Kmart, and guess what? That wasn't a great buy. So someone will buy something that will continue to have some historical significance and will continue to turn some cash, I'm sure, because of the residences and the hotel itself. So.
Sure. I want to know if the bar still has the logo wine glasses.
You know, they flipped the Peacock Alley around, like it's on the other
in a different
side.
spot,
yeah, it's
right?
in a different spot now.
But you didn't check out the barware?
The bull and the bear, is that
that's right. The bull and the bear.
Is that it?
Yeah,
okay.
That was bull and bear. That's right. I was
They
trying
had
to
a
corner right
really
there.
neat wine glass. Not that I ever
No, you only
once.
heard of it.
I
You had
only-
never, someone told
Well,
you
I've
about the
seen
wine
it,
glasses.
but it stayed absolutely in that bar in front of me. It did not go home with me in my purse, but it had a beautiful logo on it, which
Her name is Stephanie Ricca. She
I
didn't
don't
reach
know
that.
if I'll be invited. Maybe that's why I wasn't invited to the opening. But a lot to keep an eye on in the coming months. And of course, this is the time when we're all talking about what will this mean for triggering, precipitating additional hotel transactions down the line, which the industry has been waiting to see. So that's the future. But first, as usual, we are going to take a wee look back at the month in review. Isaac, I'm going to turn it to you to briefly recap January for us. New year, new start. Any new performance trends?
Yes, and I think we have a headline. January is the headline. It's going to continue into February. So not only are sales the headline, but I think performance is beginning to become a headline as well on the positive side, not the negative side. So let's recap about January. Remember, we started very strong with the New Year's Eve week or the holiday week. It was super strong, stronger than we expected. We thought it'd be strong, but it was still even stronger than we expected. Then, of course, it weakened as we expected. Then it started surging back. And just when we thought, God, January is going to be really, really strong, Winter Storm Fern came about and wrecked everything. You remember that. So we had that negative week, and then it all returned. But what's surprising about, even with the storm, is that room demand grew. Room demand in January grew 0.5%. It would have been much stronger had Fern not occurred. So just keep that in mind. In fact, it was the first monthly increase in demand since March 2025.
Wow.
That's good news.
January now is the second highest January ever, behind January 2020. So again, talking about it was a very strong January. In terms of demand, right? We're not talking RevPAR yet. We're just talking about demand, right? And so I think it's growth upon growth in terms of demand. And that's something we hadn't seen in a very long time. And with that came the first RevPAR growth, 0.4%, also since March of last year. And then we saw the only thing I think is negative in January is still ADR. ADR grew about 0.6. It's negative in my view because it's below the rate of inflation. In fact, ADR has been below 1% for the last 3 months. And I think that's still something that we got to consider and keep talking about, because that means essentially that we would think that GOPAR is declining because revenues are not increasing as fast as expenses, if you assume expenses are increasing at the rate of inflation, which I think is a pretty good assumption. Mm-hmm. In terms of the top 25, you saw RevPAR there grow 0.1%. That doesn't sound great. Again, there are some forces that are holding it back, including Tampa Bay, some other markets that had Washington, D.C., that had very strong RevPAR growth a year ago. Washington because of the inauguration, Tampa Bay because of the hurricane markets. It's part of the hurricane market, so it's kind of reversing out. What was really interesting in the top 25 is the number one market was Minneapolis. RevPAR there was up 25%. Another top market was Miami at 16%. Pretty easy for Miami to understand that. It's in season, but they also had the college championship this year. It was in Atlanta the year prior. But there were 14 other markets in the top 25 that grew RevPAR. So again, very strong.
That is strong because typically it was only a small handful.
Right. So again, we do see change in the air. And on the flip side, in the top 25, the big losers at this point in terms of RevPAR, again, Washington, D.C., nothing to do with anything in policy. This has to do with the inauguration, all ADR driven. RevPAR there this month was down, or in January, down 31.3%. Tampa was down 19%. Again, that's a hurricane market. And then there were 7 others that were down. In terms of the remaining markets throughout the U.S., they were up 0.9%. And so that's actually pretty solid. Again, you got to remember, it would have been much higher had Fern not occurred.
Right.
Because Fern really took out essentially half the country from traveling for a good 4 or 5 days,
Yep,
including many of us, including you, Jan, who didn't join me at Alice because you couldn't get there because we were iced in here in Nashville. Top markets outside of the top 25 include Texas North, up 55%. Louisiana North up 41.6%. Hey, Jan, what do you think these two markets have in common?
Is it possible? Does it have to do with energy? Does it have to do
and
AI?
could be
Infrastructure.
Yeah. So those markets,
construction.
Louisiana North, particularly in Texas, I think they've both been seeing very strong growth. And then the large RevPAR decliners outside the top 25 were essentially the 2024 hurricane markets. Again, that will continue to be the case up until around March, and then that's going to go completely away. Now, chain bifurcation is still a thing, but the way I like to say it, because we're in January, it's thawing a bit. Okay. So luxury RevPAR was up 1.9%. Independents were up 1.2%. But the one that caught my eye, upper mid-scale, up 0.8%. Why is that important? It's the largest branded scale. And so that's really important that you're seeing that middle come back a little bit. And nearly every chain scale saw demand grow in January, except economy, but it was only down 0.3%. So that's it's a negative, but it's not a huge negative. And independents were down 1.1%. So the question I posed to myself and Jan when he was my neighbor, Jan moved away from me, dear listeners, and I'm having a very hard time. My therapist says just work with it.
I moved 43 yards away.
It is
Listen
horrible.
to the data, guys.
It is horrible because I cannot just go into his office and say, "Hey, look what I just found." Now I have to actually pack a lunch, get some water, walk across the building, and go see Jan. But I think we may be turning the corner. And I think it's a room demand thing that we've got to start paying attention to. So as I was preparing slides for January, I noticed something that I hadn't noticed. When you look at the December decrease in demand, it was only 0.5%, I remember correctly. And it's the smallest decrease since the very middle of the year, beginning of last year. And then you add January, and what you start seeing, and you add February month to date, you start seeing an upward trend. And so when I started thinking about, so December's decrease was the smallest since May. January's rise was the first, as I said, since March, but it was growth on growth. February is on track to increase by more than 2%. And that to me starts telling me there's a trend. I have a lot more facts about that. If you exclude the 13 hurricane markets, you also exclude Los Angeles from the numbers. Los Angeles last year benefited from the wildfires, which is a bad way of saying it, but they had displacement, impacted. Houston was a big drag on the U.S. because they had also weather-related issues from the middle of 2024, then Las Vegas because of all the changes in Las Vegas, and D.C. So if you look at 154 of the 172 markets, so 89% of all markets, so we're not just cherry picking, I want to make that clear. January room demand was up 2.2%. It is the largest gain among those 154 markets since February of 2023.
So demand is turning the corner.
Right, demand, and that's the most important thing. You can't get pricing without demand, right? You got to have heads and beds.
Should we make T-shirts that say you can't get pricing without demand?
Yes,
maybe
we should. December demand in that same light, those 154 markets, was up 1.7%. So again, now I'm really seeing something that's real. And then I started going through all the chain scales, except independents. They were all up, ranging from 8.9% in luxury to 5.2% in mid-scale. Others were between 2.3 economy and 3.2 upper mid-scale. So, I mean, there's something here. And again, it's hard to say 2.5 months is a trend, but it's something worth watching very carefully. And we're going to continue just kind of isolating, again, not cherry picking, not looking at only the best markets. We really took out the ones that were real outliers, the ones I mentioned before, the hurricane markets, et cetera. But there's something really, really strong here. And then a couple other tidbits before we move on. This month in February, I know we're talking January, but it's very important to get this out already. In the first 21 days of February, because we're reporting 21 days of performance, 20 of those days have seen growth in demand. That is the most we've seen at 20 out of 21 since January of 2023.
Wow.
And in January of this year, we also saw 15 days of demand growth out of the 31 days. And again, that was impacted a good bit by firm.
Right.
So there is something that I'm going to keep, looking at. but there is something very different happening. And the reason I say that, because on average in 2025, each month only had 7 days of demand growth.
Wow. Okay.
So now you start saying, hey, this is really interesting. And when I talk about the 20 days of demand growth, that's the whole U.S. That's not the 154. This is really just the whole U.S. looking at it and say, what is, something's up here. So I think I'm really turning optimistic because we didn't expect this. And we thought December was an anomaly. Now January, we can't say, well, January is an anomaly too, because it actually got impacted by something that was very impactful. And now February, it just seems to be really booming.
What do you call before a trend? A micro trend? A pre-trend?
Yeah, I mean,
An indicator?
the tea leaves are pointing in the
tea
right,
leaves. All right.
in the right
Okay.
direction.
Ladies and gentlemen, Jan Freitag reads the tea leaves.
I read data. That's what
Well, so good. I love your optimism. I love the way you're looking at this. I love the way that you're extracting the outliers and saying, okay, what's at the core, right? And that's the 150 plus markets. We always, of course, have the bumper sticker on our cars. 1 month does not a trend make. You're
2
saying
months, 3 months.
right.
No.
So are we there yet? Let's give it all the way through February. Now, you're right. The first 3 weeks are very, very encouraging. You and I have talked about this being slow and very slow growth or slight deceleration now for so long. It's going to take me a minute to retrain that muscle of being so optimistic. So I want you to be right. I'm just going to sit over here and not say anything. I'm just going to wait for a little bit and let the data play out.
Yeah, I mean, again, it was striking when we were just creating the graphs. Again, a lot of this, as we're starting to analyze January, because we do a lot of internal meetings, as you know, Stephanie, and we were actually preparing for an internal meeting when wait a minute, what is this? This is different. I didn't expect this. And then February, I thought, oh, something's wrong. And again, being a data guy, the first thing you always think about is, oh my God, there's something wrong with the data. And then you start digging, and that's the first thing we do is, okay, let's go make sure the data's right.
Eliminate the user error.
Right, make sure that I didn't filter for something odd. And so, because again, many times working with all these big data sets, you can push a filter. So we've been working on this for the last several days, and everything still points to a very strong February. And just to remind you, February a year ago had a 1% demand growth, and we're looking at 2.3. So it's growth on growth. So it could become the best February ever in STR history.
Okay.
And 2.3% is, in the way I came up with 2.3, because it's actually up 3 I saw it today, 3 something. It's as of the 21st is up 3% month to date, but I expect the week to decline. So just to be really conservative, I have the remaining 7 days declining, and it still shows a 2.3% gain in demand. So that's a conservative. It could be much, much better.
So they drink the tea, they read the leaves, and then they actually
then we drink the tequila.
The numbers. And then they finish the tea with a mixer of their choice.
Yes. Just to finish out the performance side for January, globally, it's still doing really well. RevPAR is up 2.8% on occupancy of 2 points. ADR did slow, but it fell actually to 0.8%. It was really because of China and Mexico ADR. Some the China part had to do with the movement of the lunar New Year. So, and then Mexico, we're watching carefully because it seems to be a correction, and it's hard to explain this. We've been looking at this over this past week, where you see ADR really growing very, very strong last year, end of 2024 into 2025, and now going back down. It seems to be all in the luxury properties. But when you look at the absolute ADR, it does seem like it's going back to where it was prior. So, and if you take those two countries out, then global RevPAR was actually up 4.2% on a 3% ADR increase. So again, it's really two countries that kind of brought down the global number. And then since we were talking the Winter Olympics, obviously one of the highest performing, even though it was January, one of the highest performing countries was Italy. RevPAR was up 13%. Milan was up 30%. And this is January, not even the February when the actual event took place. And then, of course, your favorite fan, Canada, still up 7.9%. ADR at 4.7%. So really, I think one last thought, global demand has been trending up for a while. It's been the U.S. that's been trending down. And so it was up again at 3.3% this month, and that was the largest since November 2024. So again, we're watching demand not only in the U.S., but globally in many countries. So this could be much better than we thought. So.
Yeah, unfortunately, Mexico is in the news, all of last week,
Right.
and some people got stuck in some markets. So it's going to be interesting to see what the knock-on effect is. Are people going to say suddenly, oh, all of Mexico isn't safe? Will that impact how, for example, the Canadians that just traveled to Mexico, are they all coming to the Caribbean now? So I think that's definitely something to watch.
Yeah, and we'll continue watching that. Again, this was January, this before all that. This again, it's very local. It's localized into the resort areas of Mexico, again, among luxury properties. So that's what we've been watching.
And I know we'll keep an eye specifically on Mexico and Canada as we move into World Cup season as well, which we'll talk about later. All right, Jan, it is time for your topic of the month, which is one that, is a headline right now for everyone involved in commercial real estate, and that's data center development, right? We all see these giant data centers popping up or proposed for regions around the U.S. that have a lot of land, access to energy and water to accommodate this kind of development, which is really for artificial intelligence infrastructure, right? Mega computing centers that power all of the times that Jan asks Copilot to write poems about RevPAR. That power has to come from somewhere, and it's a data center. Jan, you've done some research looking at hotel development around these sites. Tell us what we need to know.
Yeah, I had Copilot write a haiku, which I'm not going to share with you because it was actually not that great about the three of us and RevPAR. But it had no problem doing it. It took 0.58 seconds and killed a tree, I guess.
Well, it was powered by a data center.
Yes, exactly.
Somewhere in the Great Plains.
So part of why I love this job, and part of, it's so fun to be having access to the STR data and the CoStar data, is to be able to look at other commercial real estate plays and sort of connect it to the hospitality industry. So there was a reporter over at CoStar News who wrote an article. It was called "The Nation's Biggest AI Data Centers Are Taking Root in Some Unexpected Places," which, of course, made me perk up and say, oh, okay, well, which places? And so they are really literally in the middle of nowhere. 15 of them are under construction right now. These are either data centers or large power generation plants, millions and millions of square feet, billions and billions of development dollars put into the Great Plains in the middle of nowhere, literally. And so I was like, okay, so who's building these? Clearly, the people who are constructing them are not living there. So, ta-da, they must be using hotel room nights. So I asked for the list of those 15 very, very large-scale developments and just went into our product and did a radial search. 5 miles, 10 miles, 15 miles around those data centers and said, hey, what's the hotel performance of those properties? And I came up with an article that ran on CoStar News. Construction of AI for infrastructure proves a boon for hotels of remote areas.
We will link this article in the show notes.
And not a big surprise, right? That on an annualized basis, 12 months ending late last year, occupancies are increasing, 10% or so for around hotels around those data centers. But the individual occupancy varies widely, right? So in some markets, occupancies are up 10, 20% or so in a radius around the property. And I just thought I'd pick one specific project. This is the Meta Hyperion campus in Holly Ridge, Richland Parish, Louisiana.
Louisiana North. Isaac said it earlier.
Right? Exactly. That connects back to Isaac's point about Louisiana North and about Texas South being absolutely the hotbeds of this development. So the $10 billion Hyperion is an AI supercluster slated to be Meta's largest ever data center, over 4 million square feet. So that is a lot of development. And then, of course, I went to Wikipedia and asked, so tell me about Holly Ridge, Louisiana. And they said it has a population of less than 2,000. So clearly, not a lot of people live there. And the people who are in the trades probably all work at that place. But clearly, you had to get a lot of people shipped in, and they need hotels to stay with them. So I did a radial study 5 miles around this meta construction, and there are no hotels. So then I did a 10-mile radius, and there are 4 hotels with 1 Holiday Inn Express in construction. So I said, okay, that doesn't work either. And so I did a 20-mile radius, and then you get to some data. And it's just really interesting to look at the occupancy annualized is up almost 12%. The room rate annualized is up almost 9%. The other, just I have to bring in this side note because this was on Wikipedia, so it must be true. Quote, vehicle crashes on roads near the Hyperion construction site increased by more than 600% in 2025 compared to 2024. So clearly, with a lot more people come a lot more problems and also a lot more car crashes. So we link to this article in the show notes, but I just think it's a super interesting way of how, when we talk about AI and construction, how this always links back to our industry.
So for those of you that want to visit where this site is going, it's between Monroe and Shreveport on I-20. That's why there's so many accidents, because there's one road, and the major hotel market's either Monroe or Shreveport. There is nothing else really in between there. So
the exact address is actually Burn Road. Burn Road in Holly Ridge, Louisiana.
Well, it's not it's off the freeway, I assume, someplace.
But the question, and 2 points here. So number one, you can see, and I don't know if you said you looked at the hotels there. So I listened in on Wyndham's fourth quarter full year earnings call, and they mentioned specifically this type of project for hotel signings and conversions that they had in the works last quarter and last year. I believe it was brought up on Choice's call as well. I would imagine IHG, you mentioned Holiday Inn Express, that maybe economy to mid-scale. Extended stay as well, especially those economy extended stay and, a little bit above that we've seen so popular. But the real question is, we've heard that these data centers, of course, to build something that big, you need a lot of people to build it. But then you don't need a lot of people to run it. So does our Louisiana market need to say, hey, we've got a data center and now we've got hotels, we better get some other business?
I totally agree with you, Steph. That is the $100 billion question. And I'm super worried that once this data center is built, it's going to be run by 12 people. 10 of them sit in Seattle.
Right. And the other 2 live in their house somewhere.
There will always be technicians going there. So there'll be, some of the hotels will be fine. Because, again, having only visited one data center in my life, there were more people than you thought. There's not many people that are operate that are there 24/7, right? That's their office. Mm-hmm. But there are a lot of people in there, technicians, servicing, updating, whatever you want to call it. So that kind of work will continue regardless.
Mm-hmm. That's good to keep in mind.
But it's not like an office that's just going to have a population of 1,000. No, it may have a population transient of 500 people here.
Right, but not renewing leases in different office blocks. Okay.
So it's very different.
That's very, as I said, it is the headline in all commercial real estate. So to look at that hotel link.
And I just love that we can connect those data sets, through the CoStar platform.
All right, Isaac, it is time for your topic of the month. We alluded to it a little bit earlier, and I will say that today as we record, it is just over 100 days till the ball drops on FIFA World Cup 2026. Is that how I say it? For football, the ball drops. For football, soccer.
It's called kickoff, but okay, let's go.
Yeah, that would be great.
This is why I'm not the sports reporter for CoStar News Hotels. That's Trevor Simpson's job. But ball drops, kickoff. A whistle. I'm sure there's a whistle, an air horn. A vuvuzela.
Oh, remember the vuvuzela?
Until it starts, right? 16 cities in the U.S., Canada, and Mexico. Everyone is wondering what the international inbound demand will look like. Yep. Isaac, STR's done a World Cup forecast.
We have.
Give us some color commentary.
I was going to say, we're wondering too. So as your, dear listener, as your lead forecaster, based on what I said earlier in this podcast, we may have to rethink this. But let me tell you what we were thinking when we put together the forecast, which we only did 3 weeks ago, and we presented it at Alice. So for those of you at Alice, is a big hotel conference in LA. Many of you know that. And so at Alice, I talked about how important the World Cup was to our forecast. So if you just remove the 11 U.S. markets out of the U.S., like just remove them, let me go backwards. We've predicted that RevPAR this year would rise by 0.6%. So if you remove those 11 markets, that would mean that the rest of the U.S. would be down 0.3%. Wow. Meaning that the 11 markets are adding 0.9% to that number.
But that's for the year.
For the year, right. So, but you can't really exclude those 11 markets. They have, many of them are in the top 25. They're really big markets, LA, obviously Dallas, Atlanta, New York. So you can't remove them. So what we did is we went back into the forecast and said, hey, what if we did the forecast without the World Cup? What do we think these markets would do without the World Cup? And then say, how would the U.S. fare? So if we did that, I can go through the methodology for those of you call me. I'll tell you how we did it. But then
there were tea leaves. There were tea leaves.
We had to dim the lights a little bit.
Some crystals involved.
Crystals, yes. But what we found is instead of rising by 0.6%, U.S. RevPAR would have only risen by 0.2%. So we believe that the World Cup is a 40 basis, is it? Yeah, no. Yeah, 40 basis point gain this year.
For the year.
For the year.
In 1 month of play, but 2 months of shoulder. Yeah.
But 1 month of play, 2 months is the way we looked at it.
Okay.
What's interesting, again, based on what we're seeing now in January and February and a little bit December, we have to really rethink the demand side because there may be a bigger demand play than we thought. The ADR side, I think I think we have it right. But again, we'll look at that as well. But just give you some more numbers on it. Collectively, those 11 markets in June and July will rise about 12.7% in RevPAR. So we're not talking. We're being conservative overall. I think those markets are actually pretty well forecasted, where we may be conservative as the rest of the U.S., given what we're seeing, right? So that maybe we will see a better RevPAR, but not necessarily just from those 11 markets. So we're going to stick with that 12.7% for those markets. To give you some idea, just give you some comparisons, back in June and July of 1994, when we last hosted the World Cup, the markets that hosted the World Cup saw RevPAR increase by 6.9%.
Wow, so this is much stronger.
So on a 5% ADR increase. So this is, I think it makes sense right now.
How different is the host city lineup this time?
Some of them, they were the same. New York was also a player then.
Right.
I think Dallas was too, but I don't remember. I have to look at it. But I think we've got, again, the host city piece right. If we have to revisit anything, it's going to be the rest of the U.S. And then and then ADR is still a wild card. Again, we looked at it. We tried to look at number of luxury properties, all that, assuming that's going to still be bifurcation. That's where it's going to be. But again, we'll continue watching it very carefully. But it is still significant, even though the numbers are low in terms of total U.S. RevPAR number. It's still going to be a significant event. And we should link the press release as well that we released on the 19th.
So what do you see so far right now in terms of forward-looking data?
It's mixed. That was what's funny. Some markets were up. There's no doubt you can see, because I actually looked at by the play dates and things, but other markets were flat. So it's just very mixed. And it could be just way too soon.
Right, because there's still a lot that we don't
Right.
know yet.
So again, I think we are going to, we were just talking about that with the team yesterday. We are monitoring that. We're going to look at it weekly and start really watching it as soon, especially as we get into the end of March, really March and April, we'll really have a much better handle of what that pickup looks like. But some markets were doing fine. I mean, New York is one of those markets that's going to be great. We're looking, how's Kansas City going to do? How's Atlanta going to do? There's so many markets that we just don't really know. I think LA actually might do okay. So
we hear a lot about Vancouver,
Mexico City,
as the Mexico markets go. And you talk about combining data sets or overlaying, juxtaposing them. It would be interesting to see what airlines are saying about their forward booking and pricing data. where some of that demand is coming from, because that international is still the question.
Right. That is the big wild card. And international was down in December, and it was down in January, if I remember correctly. I think the numbers are out. So international, even though we're maybe seeing a difference in demand for the hotel industry, international is still down. It's not, and then outbound was still increasing as well in January.
Yeah, a couple of comments. So I think number one, exactly right. International inbound is the wild card, is really the question. Will people be able to get visas? Even though you get this, sort of golden visa, if you get a ticket, what does that look like? So all of those questions are still to be answered. I think there's another round of ticket allocations. So maybe after that happens, there will be more demand increases, more occupancies on the books. I think we're very lucky that we have access to the forward start data through STR. I also would think that that's better 90 days out than where we are today.
Right.
So give us a next.
We
tell
are
me more.
106 days out from the puck dropping, the whistle blowing.
No, the puck would be a totally different sport.
The World Cup. So
I did that on purpose.
I think the next couple of Tell Me Mores, we're going to have a lot better insights. Our friend Jamie Lane from AirDNA built a really cool dashboard that looks at short-term rental occupancies on the books. I think that's worth checking out just to see how that overlays with what we're talking about. I am just a little worried. We are the most conservative in our forecast. Right. There are other forecasters out there who are saying, no, guys, you have it all wrong. This is like 48 Super Bowls. And I think that's a little too optimistic. So we will see about that. The other piece, and that's where Isaac comes in, where we may be too conservative, is that we may have underestimated the impact of the base camps. This idea of Japan being in Nashville. I talked to the GM yesterday, who I can't mention because he swore me to secrecy, but the Japanese team is staying with them, and he's like, "Yep, this is actually for."
So you're hosting the Japanese team?
There is a hotel in Nashville.
Oh, I know. Jan will be firing up his barbecue grill.
Yeah, Jan will be cooking.
Please. But so that's going to be interesting for all those World Cup teams that are coming in, right? There are 48 of them.
Sure.
Where are they going to stay? And that's could lift some secondary or tertiary markets.
And some, like Team Japan, will have a large press presence. Correct. And teams that are expected to that have a good amount of money behind them to support that type of extra business.
I think one thing we can say with certainty about the forecast is that Germany is going to be in the Final Four. Just saying.
All right. I was going to talk seriously here, but I didn't. I do think you're right on some of these base camp, and I think like Nashville is going to actually do very well. One of the things, again, as we look out, January and February tend to be very quiet months here in Nashville, and they haven't been. And so I think then on top of that, I think that momentum that we're seeing that's beginning, Nashville's having a very strong convention season already, and leisure is it came back faster than it normally does. Normally it's not till the springtime. So then you add upon that the space camp idea. Yeah, I think you might see some markets, including like Nashville, just really pop more so than what they're doing now. So.
Well, and that kind of business this early in the year will make up for the fact that, we hear that World Cup matches in some of the host city, means that some conventions and events are saying, well, okay, let's go somewhere else so that we are not in Houston at the same time as this, right? So if you're laying in that group base...
Yeah, I think it's going to be very interesting. And again, I think we'll be talking about this in the next podcast.
Correct.
Several podcasts.
I think we'll have a World Cup corner. All right, I promise I will never say when the puck drops again.
But again, I think I'd rather be conservative right now. Let's get more data behind us, and let's see what really happens on that forward booking piece and the international inbound. Then we'll revise. And if we're wrong and it's much higher, that is great. That is the best position to be in.
All right, listeners, thank you for sticking with us for another episode. We are at the close of our February episode, and you know how we always close it. We give the metaphor. These two guys just spend their entire month thinking about a clever way to describe the hotel industry.
We do.
As they see it in this point in time. So I'm in the room with you now. Who wants to go first?
I think I'm going to go first because this is a Nashville story. dear listeners, if you're ever in Nashville, you might be lucky enough to see us out and about, live and in person. So Jan and I, so not only are we good data collaborators, I think we're actually pretty good friends. That's why it hurts so much that you left. I'm still hurting here.
43 yards.
43 yards. But, so we were out in January. We went out, Jan called and said, do you want to go see Sheryl Crow? And I said, yeah, that'd be great. So we went to the Woodworth Theater. Mm-hmm. And so it was
They never call me. I'm just a quick hour's flight away.
Well, you should have come. It was a great show. But in that show, as we're thinking, data's never far from our minds. So we're watching the show and saying, she's really good. And she decides to do a cover. And that cover is the perfect metaphor for what we saw this month and what we're seeing in February. It's by the Beatles. It was on the Abbey Road album. Here Comes the Sun. I think
neither of us wants to actually sing it, so we just let that pause so that you all could sing it to yourselves.
And you heard the mic drop. Didn't you hear that? That was pretty good.
There was a mic drop. Boy, this is fun live. I got to come down here every month to do this. Here Comes the Sun.
Here Comes the Sun.
All right.
And I will stick with that. And that was before we'd actually seen the sun, because now we're seeing it.
Isn't that her song is I Want to Soak Up the Sun.
Right.
That's her.
Yeah,
her song.
But she sang truly. She actually did a cover of this, and it was great. It was like really, really good.
It was very fun.
Amazing. Jan, how about you?
So, well, I think we're just going to stick with soccer. To quote the great Gary Lineker, soccer is when two teams play for 90 minutes and then the Germans win. That is literally his quote. That's not what my
Is that your metaphor? No. The industry wins. I like that. That works.
Well, unfortunately, I'm going to go back to how soccer is just a lot of effort, 90 minutes, both teams giving it their all. And at the very end, you end up with a 0-0. And so I think the hotel industry is going to have just a really, really hard time to eke out even the smallest victory here. I think we're going to run for 365 days really, really hard. And then the performance is just going to be flat with last year.
So let me get this straight. We've gotten our positions back to normal. The stars have aligned. You're the pessimist and I'm the optimist. Everything's back to normal.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
I think I really like that comparison. I always say I'm a basketball fan because I need scoring fast. I need to see high numbers up on those boards. I don't like the 0-0.
I mean, one of my favorite lines from Ted Lasso is when he's like, win or lose, this and this, and then the reporter yells at him, or draw, and he's like, oh, right, you do this over here. And that is sort of, it's going to be a draw.
Sure.
It's going to be, 0-0, 1-1, like not a lot of action.
You heard it here first. We're going to have to watch this very carefully.
I have a feeling I know what the next 6 months of this podcast are going to look like. Hey, hope you all have a great month. Thank you for listening. Find us wherever you like to listen, including now on YouTube. Find all the news about the global hotel industry at CoStar.com/hotel news. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
See you next time.
I'm Terence Baker, News Editor, Europe, Middle East and Africa, and I'm the host of The Upgrade, a CoStar News Hotels podcast for the EMEA region. In it, I discuss with special guests the pressures, challenges, joys and exhilaration that comes with managing, owning and developing hotels in our glorious multifaceted industry. Discovering the EMEA region from the scenic northern shores of Norway to the heights of Table Mountain in South Africa, and most likely some chat about birdwatching, distance running and the English Premiership. Join us wherever you find your podcasts, on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify and on other platforms.
This episode of Tell Me More, a hospitality data podcast, was recorded on February 25, 2026. The episode was edited by Sean McCracken. Find all hotel industry news at CoStar.com/hotel news. Thanks for listening.